Stephen, I want to ask you, the Obama administration, it seems right now, very curiously, they've decided to get much more active on this right after the election. They're apparently, reportedly holding these meetings, trying to get the resistance together. It seems like they are ready to move here. It seems like they're actually going to be getting deeply involved in this conflict themselves. I would say it seems to be a sea change from their sort of inactive policies, as you and SE have been discussing. What would you, if you would just lay out for me, lay out for the table and the viewers, what should they be, assuming that is the case, assuming we've decided that we can no longer be inactive here, that we need to actually show leadership, we need to put together a coalition, that this is going to effectively become an Arab version of the sort of Yugoslavia interventions under the Clinton years, what should the Obama administration be doing? I mean, if they actually called you, Stephen, they said, tell us what we should be doing, what would you tell them?
Well, heaven forbid they should call me and ask me, but I think in all seriousness they have some fundamental questions to answer. Is the United States going to take the lead in a coalition, or is it going to play a supporting role? What's the objective of the coalition? Is the coalition, whether it's the EU, NATO, US, UN, or arms embargoes, going to remain in place when it comes to arming the rebels? If there are arms going to the rebels, who is going to take responsibility in coordinating the information necessary to know where they go? Who are these people? What happens to the arms? Who's in charge to adjust course should this not work? I mean, there's just a tremendous amount of work that goes into any kind of a coalition effort. The light footprint model of Libya left a whole host of problems and questions unresolved that we're dealing with now. There's the potential of that in Syria. It's good that they take the conflict more seriously, but at the same time, the president is off to Cambodia and Burma next week, not to the Middle East. Hillary Clinton is off to Australia, pretty close to Burma and Cambodia. Not really on the scene, taking a hands-on role with what's happening in Turkey and Israel, two vitally strategic countries in getting this right.
Hey, Stephen, it's Will Kane. I want to turn one of your many questions for President Obama back and ask you this question. You said, who are these people? We know now that the resistance is unified under this gentleman, Al-Khatib, right? A Damascus cleric. I think I've heard from some that with ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, and that the resistance is seeming to kind of coalesce at least under some kind of leadership in that direction. What do you know? What can you tell us about this guy? What is the resistance beginning to look like?
Well, this new leader is someone that is seen as having at least said the right things and keeping a big tent approach to Syrian politics. I think in the setup it was entirely right. That's relative to the reality of what Syria is. But he has made an explicit effort in going out in public with people who are not always Muslim and people who are not necessarily of his brand of Islam. And so he's made very, very clear that there's supposed to be one Syria that's comprised of a lot of people, not just Sunnis, and not certainly to dilute somewhat the impression, if not the reality, of Muslim Brotherhood influence.
But Stephen,
so in that, he seems the right direction.
Yeah, but Stephen, he's also said that he's been willing to meet with Assad and have bilateral talks with him. Is that the kind of thing that you think the Syrian people want to hear right now?
Well, it depends on how serious he is and what kind of a plan he has. I mean, if it's the right kind of a conversation, like how you're going to get out of office and how we're going to have a transition of government, I'm not opposed to him having a direct conversation. He did actually work with Assad during one point, which actually got him into trouble, when Assad allegedly had given him the mandate to come up with a way to get out of this civil war. When he came back with unpalatable options, Assad chose to charge him, and then he left the country.
Assuming Khatib here is somebody who's actually able to unify the resistance in the way that it seems the U.S. government is trying to push them towards, what's interesting is that he'll then either be in one of two situations. He will have people who, factions within Syria, who have been engaged in probably suicide bombing, if you believe the reports, and certainly in jihadist activity within Syria, avowed jihadist activity under the black flag, working either with them, having to bring them into the tent, or they'll be outside and he doesn't control them. And what does that mean for Syria after Assad? So even if this was all working, you see, it's interesting because we don't know if this is going to make things a whole lot better.